Good morning, y'all. You're back, and I've got more big questions about the Jehovah's Witnesses and their leadership, or more specifically, how they say they don't have leadership. Which is weird, because you need their leadership in order to be saved in Armageddon. You have to follow their faithful and discreet slave in order to be saved in Armageddon. And it's like the most gaslighting phrase ever, which pisses me off. How they say, we are not leaders, we take the lead. If that's not in the dictionary by gaslighting, I don't know what else should be. Because that's just knuckin' futz, man. I don't know if they, rehearse this in front of the mirror or what. But, I guarantee you that if they think that sounds normal or reasonable, they need to be diagnosed with something. However, let's move on. So one of their big scriptures is Hebrews 13:17, and it says to follow the ones taking the lead among you. My first point, number one, is it's interesting that this is one of 2 out of more than 30 translations that I compared that said anything besides your leading authorities, your governing structure, your leadership, your leader. They're the only one, they're one of 2 out of more than 30 that say take the lead. More than 30 translations. And they still don't have qualifications listed for their translators. Number one. Number two, that award they say they got for their Bible, it's for translating their version into a language that's not commonly acknowledged. I'm sorry. That's what their award is for. But let's get beyond that, because that's not the big point. The big point is that they give us the evidence that they're contradicting themselves. They basically hand it to us on a silver platter. Do you know what that is? Because these guys are really big on semantics. They're very carefully watching how they do their testimony in court, to the point where to outsiders it sounds normal and reasonable. However, when you get apostates and any otherwise former member, if they don't want to identify as an apostate, they need to help investigators in courts see what they're trying to skirt around. So it was really interesting to me when I realized how often they use the term decree to describe the fellowshipping structure that they have. Decree. And they started using that back in 1983. That's the first time it showed up that I happened to find. And it was about respecting the disfellowshipping decree. Now, it only started in 1981. It's in the Shepherd the Flock of God book, and the governing body in their talks refer to it as the disfellowshipping decree. Do you know what a decree is? It's not divine law, God's law, biblical law. A decree is a proclamation by someone in authority having the force of law. Having the force of law. A decision, a proclamation by someone in authority having the force of law. Now, they say that the Jehovah's Witnesses make their choices about how to associate with disfellowshipped people. They make their choices. And people that do what they do to get disfellowshipped makes their choices. But that whole cliche example, you can choose to rob a bank. It is completely within your parameters to choose whether or not to rob a bank. But somebody has the authority to instill consequences against you for that. You can choose to smoke a cigarette, but somebody in authority has the ability to inflict consequences. And it's not a personal decision to be disfellowshipped. I didn't personally choose to be disfellowshipped. 95 to 99% of the people who get disfellowshipped probably don't want to be disfellowshipped. Sister Elder can't walk up to somebody and say, I don't like you, I don't like your behavior, you're no longer a Jehovah's Witness, I'm disfellowshipping you. Brother Ministerial Servant can't do it. Brother Elder cannot even do it. You have to have a whole committee make this decision. And once it's on a committee, is it any longer a personal choice? Is a committee a personal choice anymore? And when the Shepherd the Flock of God book says that you need to discuss with people and warn them and possibly disfellowship them for not respecting the disfellowshipping decree, are there not consequences for not listening to this authority? And who has this authority? The people at the top who developed the disfellowshipping decree? The circuit overseers who oversee these disfellowshipping decrees? The elders who make the decision on a micro level, on the boots on the ground level, about each individual disfellowshipping decree through their committees that are no longer personal decisions? They've got a whole set of guidelines and manuals and handbooks, guidelines, manuals, handbooks, whatever you want to call them. They've got a whole series of these to delineate the authority structure within the organization, the qualifications, the titles, the roles, the duties, the authorities that they have in each individual position. And no one person can make the decision to disfellowship. It's no longer a personal decision. Like I said, Sister Elder can't walk up and say, I'm disfellowshipping you. You can't even say, I'm disfellowshipping myself. That's disassociating. That is a personal decision to choose to dissociate. Now, there's other consequences. Dissociating is also a consequence. Disassociation is also a consequence. Because they can't legally disfellowship you for making very private medical choices, or for voting, or for any of this. They can't legally do it. So they just changed the verbiage up a little bit. And low-key, in their little like underground government that they're constructing, their little government that flies under the radar, low-key made certain sins basically indictments. Like automatic consequence. But there's definitely an authority structure. And their vocabulary, just the vocabulary alone proves it. So when you're disfellowshipped, and can you choose to talk to people? Absolutely. Are there going to be consequences? Will you be asked to leave? Will the people that you choose to speak to face consequences? Absolutely. None of this is personal choice. This is all within an authority structure If you don't have personal choice about like consequences that should be personal choices, like who you speak to, what family you have, how alone you are when you're facing trauma, if your family and your friends can't participate with you without facing consequences, there's no personal choice. But when you disrespect the disfellowshipping decree, are you disrespecting the governing body, the faithful slave who gave the elders that authority and created this decree, this decision made by somebody in authority? Which brings up a whole nother question. It's not biblical law, it's not God's law, it's not religious law. It's a decision having the force of law. So is it even legitimate? By their own vocabulary, is it even legitimate? But secondly, it says there's authority. There is authority. So when you disrespect that authority, are you disrespecting the faithful slave who made that decision and doesn't talk to 99.9%, 99.9999999% of their followers, their minions? Are you disrespecting them, who you never, ever, ever, ever speak to? Or are you disrespecting the elders who, as a committee, not a personal decision, as a committee, made a decision to disfellowship somebody? Are you disrespecting the faithful slave or the party of elders, which we know can be corrupt on different levels? Everybody's got their good and bad congregations, their pushy and laid back congregations. Everybody knows all this. Are you disrespecting them? Are you disrespecting the elder emperors? Or the old school fundamental uber conservative like old guys that are not with society and think knees are salacious? Are you disrespecting them? Are you disrespecting the people that walk around asking women what underwear they were wearing when they got assaulted? Or are you disrespecting the governing body? Because they don't talk to these people. They don't talk to the tiniest fraction of a fraction of us on a personal level. Their vocabulary brings a lot of things into question here. A lot of things into question. I'm just saying. What do you think?